Instructor Velkath thought breaking the human would be easy, until she started doing push-ups at nearly 5 times gravity, while he was collapsing outside the chamber. Instructor Velkath of the Centauri Prime Defense Corps had seen a lot in his 20 cycles of service at the Galactic Combat Academy. He had trained Craxian berserkers who could rip through steel plating with their bare claws. He had coached Veltraxian jump troops who could leap 50 meters in full combat gear. He had even supervised a class of Thernian shock troopers whose exoskeletons could withstand direct plasma fire. But humans were a joke. The Galactic Combat Academy sprawled across the northern continent of Station Kelos 9, a massive training complex that had produced some of the finest warriors in the known galaxy. The main facility alone covered 12 square kilometers packed with simulation chambers, weapon ranges, zero-gravity combat zones, and environmental adaptation labs. This was where the best came to become legendary. This was where Velkath had built his reputation as the toughest, most uncompromising instructor in the entire sector. And now, apparently, this was where the Galactic Council had decided to send their newest member species for combat certification. Velkath's dual heart sank every time he looked at the human standing in front of him. Rebecca Torres. That was her name. She stood maybe 1.7 meters tall, which was pathetically short by any reasonable standard. She had dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, skin the color of Centaurian sand, and absolutely zero intimidation factor. She wore the standard Academy training uniform, gray and form-fitting, designed to allow maximum mobility. On a Craxian, the uniform looked terrifying. On a Veltraxian, it looked sleek and deadly. On Rebecca Torres, it looked like someone had dressed up a child for career day. Instructor Velkath, she said, extending her hand in that bizarre human greeting gesture. Looking forward to training with you, sir. Velkath looked at the offered hand like it might explode. His facial plates shifted in what might have been disgust, or possibly just confusion. After an awkward moment, Rebecca lowered her hand, shrugging slightly. Perfect. She could not even handle a basic greeting rejection. This was going to be easier than he thought. The problem with humans, from Velkath's extensively researched perspective, was that they were soft, not just physically soft, though they absolutely were that too. No protective scales, no armored carapace, no subdermal plating, nothing. They were just wrapped in this thin layer of easily damaged tissue that tore if you looked at it wrong. But worse than that, they were mentally soft. They came from a paradise world called Earth where apparently everything was just handed to them. Moderate temperatures, abundant food, gentle gravity, and no real predators to speak of. The intelligence report said that humans had reached the top of their food chain basically by accident, through some fluke of evolution that gave them opposable thumbs and oversized brains. They had never really had to fight for survival the way proper warrior species had. The Centauri, by contrast, had evolved on a brutal high-gravity world, where everything, and Velkath meant everything, was trying to kill you at all times. The plants were poisonous, the animals were venomous, the weather could strip flesh from bone, even the dirt had predatory microorganisms. The Centauri had earned their place in the galaxy through blood, sweat, and the corpses of countless ancestors who were not quite strong enough, not quite fast enough, not quite tough enough. And now humans thought they could just waltz into the Galactic Combat Academy and play soldier. Not on Velkath's watch. The training facility where he had scheduled today's session was in Sub-Level Theta, one of the Academy's specialized environmental chambers. It was a massive circular room, 50 meters in diameter, with walls made of reinforced durasteel composite rated to withstand heavy weapons fire. The floor was covered in impact-absorbing gel mat, dark gray and slightly textured. Around the perimeter, observation windows allowed other instructors and students to watch training sessions, though most of them were currently empty. But not for long. Velkath had made sure to mention to several of his colleagues that the human would be training today. Word spread fast in the academy. By the time the session started, he expected a decent crowd. The best part, the environmental chamber was equipped with variable gravity plating. Standard setting was 1G, calibrated to galactic average, which most species found comfortable, but it could be adjusted anywhere from 0.5G all the way up to 5G depending on training requirements. And Velkath had a very specific training requirement in mind for Rebecca Torres. So, Rebecca said, looking around the chamber with apparent interest, "What are we working on today? Combat drills, endurance training, tactical scenarios, conditioning," Velkath said, his voice a rumbling bass that echoed slightly in the empty chamber. "Basic physical conditioning. Before we can even consider advanced combat training, I need to assess your fundamental capabilities. Strength, endurance, reaction time, pain tolerance. Makes sense, Rebecca said, nodding agreeably. She rolled her shoulders, stretched her arms across her chest one at a time, and bounced slightly on her toes. I am ready when you are, Instructor. Oh, she had no idea how ready he was. Within 10 minutes, the observation windows began filling up with spectators. Word had indeed spread quickly through the academy. Verlakath spotted at least 3 other instructors in the viewing gallery, along with a dozen students from various species. There were a pair of Craxians, their massive forms barely fitting through the doorway, scales gleaming under the artificial lighting. A cluster of Veltraxians huddled together, their insectoid heads tilting with curiosity. Even a few Dranathi had slithered up to the windows, their serpentine bodies coiling as they positioned themselves for the best view. They all wanted to see the human fail, and Verlakath was more than happy to provide the entertainment. All right, trainee Torres, Verlakath announced loudly, making sure his voice carried to the observation gallery. Today's exercise is quite simple. You will perform a standard combat readiness assessment. This includes a series of physical maneuvers, strength demonstrations, and endurance tests. Nothing extraordinary, just basic requirements that any competent warrior should be able to complete without difficulty. Rebecca nodded, still stretching. She grabbed one foot behind her, pulling it up toward her back in some kind of human flexibility exercise. Sounds good. What is the gravity set at? Standard 1G. Verlakath lied smoothly. Galactic average. Same conditions you have been training under since you arrived. Cool. Cool, Rebecca said. She released her foot and shook out her legs. Do you want me to start with warm-ups or jump straight into the assessment? The casual attitude was grating on Verlakath's nerves more than he cared to admit. Did she not understand the situation? Did she not realize she was about to be humiliated in front of half the academy? Where was the nervousness, the fear, the appropriate respect for what was about to happen? He moved toward the control panel mounted on the wall near the chamber entrance. The panel was a sleek interface, glowing softly with Centauri script and universal symbols. With a few practiced gestures, he activated the gravity plating system. A low hum filled the chamber, barely audible but definitely present. The kind of sound you felt in your bones more than heard with your ears. Current setting displayed clearly on the screen in front of him. 1.0 G. Galactic Standard. Verlakath's claw hovered over the adjustment control. In the observation gallery, he could see other instructors leaning forward. Some of them knew what he was planning. They had done similar things to overconfident recruits from other species. A little extra gravity, a little extra challenge, a little extra humiliation to teach proper respect. But Verlakath was going further than most would dare. He began programming a graduated increase. The gravity would rise slowly, over the course of 2 minutes, from 1G all the way up to 3.5G. Enough to make the human struggle. Enough to make her beg to stop. Enough to prove, once and for all, that humans did not belong in the warrior class. 3.5G was well beyond what most species could handle for extended periods. Even Centauri, bred for high-gravity environments, found 3.5G uncomfortable for anything longer than brief exercises. For a human from a soft paradise world, it should be absolutely crushing. In the observation gallery, he saw Instructor Krothanax, a fellow Centauri, chittering with amusement. The Veltraxian students were making clicking sounds with their mandibles, their version of laughter. Even the normally stoic Craxians looked interested, their predatory eyes fixed on Rebecca. Whenever you are ready, trainee Torres, Verlakath said, his hand positioned over the activation control. Begin with standard jumping exercises, 50 repetitions. Then we will move to strength assessments. Got it, Rebecca said. She positioned herself in the center of the chamber, feet shoulder width apart, arms loose at her sides. Jumping jacks, burpees, or something else. Your species calls them jumping jacks, yes, Verlakath confirmed. 50 repetitions. Begin. Rebecca started the exercise. Arms up, legs out, arms down, legs together. A simple, rhythmic movement. And Verlakath activated the gravity increase. The gravity plating hummed louder as the field intensified. Verlakath watched the display panel with satisfaction as the numbers climbed. 1.2G, 1.5G, 1.8G. He turned his attention back to Rebecca, waiting for the moment when she would stumble, when her movements would slow, when the realization would hit her that something was very, very wrong. Rebecca completed her 5th jumping jack, then her 6th, then her 7th. 2.0G now. Twice the gravity she thought she was training under. Twice the weight pressing down on her supposedly fragile human frame. She kept going. Arms up, legs out. Arms down, legs together. Her pace had not changed at all. 2.3 G. Rebecca paused mid-exercise, and Verlakath felt a surge of triumph. Here it comes. The complaint, the confusion, the desperate plea for mercy. Hey, instructor. Rebecca called out, slightly breathless but not struggling. Did someone turn on the air conditioning? It feels heavier in here all of a sudden, like the air pressure changed or something. Verlakath's facial plates froze in position. His secondary eyelids blinked rapidly, a Centauri tell of confusion. Did she just compare 3 times her planet's gravity to air conditioning? 2.5 G. The indicator kept climbing toward its programmed target. In the observation gallery, Verlakath noticed something odd. One of the Veltraxian students had backed away from the window, mandibles clicking in distress. The creatures were empathic to gravity fluctuations in nearby spaces, and even through the reinforced walls, they could sense the increasing field strength. That is just the environmental systems calibrating, Verlakath managed to say, his voice not quite as steady as he intended. Continue the exercise, trainee Torres. Sure thing, Rebecca said with a shrug. She resumed her jumping jacks. 15th repetition. 16th, 17th, 2.8 G. She should be on her knees by now. She should be gasping for air. She should be pleading for him to stop. Every bone in her body should feel like it was being compressed. Every muscle should be screaming in protest. Her cardiovascular system should be in crisis, struggling to pump blood against nearly 3 times the normal resistance. But Rebecca Torres just kept exercising. 3.0 G. 25 Rebecca counted out loud. 26. 27. She was breathing harder now, definitely working up a sweat. Her face had reddened slightly, which Verlakath knew was some kind of human thermoregulation response. But she was not stopping. She was not even slowing down significantly. 3.2 G. In the observation gallery, one of the Craxian students suddenly sat down heavily, their thick legs giving out. Craxians were strong, immensely strong, but even they had limits, and the sympathetic gravity bleed from the chamber, the minor field fluctuations that leaked through the walls, was enough to affect those standing too close to the observation windows. A Drenathi instructor slithered away from the window, body undulating with discomfort. 3.5 G. Maximum programmed intensity reached. Rebecca finished her 50th jumping jack and stopped, hands on her hips, breathing moderately hard but absolutely infuriatingly upright and functional. Okay, done. What is next on the assessment? Verlakath stared at her. His mandibles hung slightly open, a position of pure bafflement. Around him, the few remaining observers in the gallery were equally stunned. Instructor Krothnax had moved closer to the window, facial plates arranged in an expression of disbelief. You completed the exercise, Verlakath said dumbly.
Yeah?
Rebecca tilted her head, confused by his confusion. You said 50 reps. I did 50 reps. Was I supposed to do more? I can keep going if you want. No, that is sufficient, Verlakath said. His brain was struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Next we will do strength training. Push-ups. 50 repetitions. Standard form. On it, Rebecca said cheerfully. She dropped to the floor, positioned her hands shoulder-width apart, extended her legs behind her and began performing push-ups, under 3.5 times the gravity of her homeworld. At 3.5 G, Rebecca's body weight was effectively 350% of normal. Every push-up she performed was lifting nearly 4 times the mass she was accustomed to. Her arms should be collapsing. Her core should be failing. The gel mat beneath her should have been stained with tears and possibly blood as her body gave out under the impossible strain. Instead, she counted out loud. 1, 2, 3. Verlakath looked at the control panel. The gravity was definitely at 3.5 G. The system was functioning normally. The field was stable. There was no malfunction, no error, no technical explanation for what he was seeing. 15, 16, 17. In the observation gallery, the last Veltraxian student fled, unable to tolerate even the indirect exposure to the gravity field. The remaining Craxian had their head pressed against the wall, clearly struggling. 30, 31, 32. Verlakath's worldview was beginning to crack. Everything he knew about humans, everything he had researched, everything he had been told by other instructors and intelligence reports in xenobiology databases, all of it was colliding with the impossible reality playing out in front of him. Rebecca Torres reached 50 push-ups and popped back up to her feet with barely a grunt of effort. Okay, that was a decent warm-up. When does the actual conditioning start, instructor? Warm-up. She called that a warm-up. At 3.5 G. Velikath felt both of his hearts racing in a way they had not raced since his own days as a trainee. Velikath's pride would not allow him to accept what was happening. There had to be an explanation. There had to be a breaking point. No species from a soft world could possibly handle this kind of punishment. He was a Zentari for the sake of the ancestor. His people had trained warriors for 12,000 cycles. He knew what separated the strong from the weak. And humans were supposed to be weak. His claw stabbed at the control panel, overriding the safety protocols. 4.0G. He would push it to 4G and finally this ridiculous display would end. The gravity plating whined slightly as it surged beyond its normal operational parameters. The hum deepened into something felt in the chest cavity. 4 times standard gravity. 4 times what Rebecca Torres should be able to withstand. Rebecca rolled her shoulders and stretched her neck from side to side. So, are we starting the actual conditioning part soon? Because I feel pretty warmed up now. Ready for the real stuff. Something inside Velikath's mind snapped. Not broke. Exactly. More like a fundamental assumption cracking down the middle, letting reality pour through the gap. He pulled up Rebecca's file on the control panel with shaking claws. He had skimmed it before. He admitted that now. He had seen human, seen the statistics, seen the soft tissue composition and lack of natural weapons, and he had assumed he knew everything he needed to know. Now he actually read it. Species designation. Human. Homeworld. Earth. Capital city. Multiple. No central government. That was all standard. But then he scrolled further, past the biological basics, past the cultural notes, down to the environmental specifications. Homeworld gravity. 1.0G. Velikath blinked. That matched what he thought he knew. Standard gravity. Easy mode. Paradise world condition. But there was a footnote. A small notation marked with an asterisk that he had completely ignored during his initial review. He opened the footnote. Note. Earth gravity classification of 1.0G is based on sea level measurement at 45 degrees latitude. However, human evolution occurred primarily in variable gravity environments due to extreme elevation differences across continental land masses. Human ancestral populations adapted to altitudes ranging from sea level, 1.0G, to high mountain regions exceeding 4,000 meters elevation, effective gravity 1.15G, accounting for centrifugal effects and mass distribution. Additionally, Earth's significantly higher mass compared to galactic average planets results in stronger gravitational gradient effects. Humans regularly function in gravity wells ranging from 0.95G to 1.1G depending on latitude and elevation. Evolutionary adaptation includes enhanced cardiovascular efficiency, dense bone structure relative to body mass, and exceptional muscular endurance under sustained load. Velikath read it again, then a third time. The report continued. Further complicating assessment. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world by Galactic Census Bureau standards. Atmospheric composition includes 21% free oxygen, an extreme fire hazard. Native predators include pursuit carnivores capable of sustained chase for multiple kilometers. Microbial life is universally hostile to non-native biology. Plant life produces contact toxins as standard defense mechanism. Weather patterns include electrical plasma discharge storms with enough energy to vaporize organic tissue. Geological activity produces seismic events capable of leveling cities. Coastal regions experience periodic gravitational wave phenomena, called tsunamis, with enough force to obliterate settlements. Magnetic field fluctuations cause navigational disruption. Radiation exposure at surface level is significant, due to stellar proximity and atmospheric composition. Class 12 Death World. Class 12 Death World. The Zentari homeworld was Class 11. In the training chamber, Rebecca had started doing lunges, deep lunges, at 4G, alternating legs, smooth controlled movements. Her face was flushed and sweat was definitely running down her temples now, but she was doing lunges like she was in a casual gym session. In the observation gallery, the last Craxian had left. Instructor Krathanax remained, but he had moved to a chair at the back of the room, as far from the window as possible. The gravity bleed was affecting him badly. Velikath could see his colleague's plates shifting in discomfort. Trainee Torres, Velikath called out, his voice cracking slightly. Proceed to combat movement drills, defensive patterns, theta sequence. Finally, Rebecca said, grinning. She stopped the lunges and moved into a ready stance. Okay, let us do this. The theta sequence was an advanced combat drill designed for special forces operatives. It involved rapid direction changes, explosive movements, spinning kicks, rolling maneuvers and sustained acrobatic positioning. Most recruits needed months of training before attempting it at standard gravity. Many never mastered it at all. Rebecca launched into the sequence at 4G without hesitation. She pivoted left, dropped into a crouch, sprang up into a spinning kick that would have taken a Craxian's head clean off if one had been standing there. She landed, rolled forward, came up in a defensive posture, stepped back with a blocking motion, then exploded forward with a palm strike that made the air crack. At 4 times her normal body weight. Every movement should have been sluggish, every jump should have been impossible. Every roll should have ended with her crushed against the gel mat, unable to rise, but she moved like a dancer, like a predator, like something that had evolved to fight for every single day of its existence. Velikath watched his entire understanding of human beings disintegrate. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply been underestimated. By him. By everyone. Rebecca completed the theta sequence, breathing hard now, definitely tired but still standing, still functional, still ready. She looked up at the observation window where Velikath stood frozen at the control panel. "That was great," she called out. "I actually felt that one. Can we bump up the intensity a bit more? I want to really push myself today." Velikath's claws trembled over the control panel. 4.2G. 4.5G. 4.8G. He could go higher. The chamber could go higher. But he was not sure he wanted to see what would happen if he did. He was not sure his sanity could take it. In the observation gallery, Instructor Krothnax had collapsed entirely, his body unable to cope with even the sympathetic gravity exposure. Medical alerts were probably already triggering. The chamber's safety systems would be flagging the unauthorized gravity increase. And Rebecca Torres stood in the center of the room, hands on her hips, waiting for her next instruction. Velikath's claw moved almost without conscious thought. 4.8G. The absolute maximum the chamber's plating could generate without catastrophic system failure. Nearly 5 times what Rebecca Torres should be able to withstand. The hum became a roar. The very air felt thick, viscous, wrong. In the observation booth, Velikath's legs buckled beneath him. He caught himself on the control panel, both hearts hammering against his rib cage. Even here, outside the main chamber, the gravity bleed was intensifying. His vision swam. His plates felt like they were being compressed against his internal organs. He looked through the observation window with desperate, disbelieving eyes. Rebecca had stopped moving. She stood still in the center of the chamber, and for one glorious moment Velikath thought he had finally done it. He had finally found her breaking point. Then she wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "Okay, now we are talking," she said, breathing heavily but still coherent. Still standing. "This is actually a good workout. Hey, Instructor, you got any water in there? I am getting pretty thirsty." Water. She wanted water. At 4.8G, this human wanted a beverage break. Velikath tried to respond, but his vocal cords would not cooperate. The gravity bleed had intensified to the point where even speaking required more effort than he could muster. He sagged against the control panel, claws scrabbling weakly at the smooth surface. Alarms began screaming throughout the facility. Red emergency lighting flooded the observation booth. The gravity chamber's safety systems had finally overridden his authorization, recognizing that something had gone catastrophically wrong. The door to the observation booth burst open. 3 facility technicians rushed in, 2 Veltraxians and a Thernian, all wearing emergency response harnesses. They took in the scene instantly. Instructor Krothnax unconscious on the floor in the back of the room. Velikath collapsed against the control panel, the gravity readings on the display showing 4.8G, and through the window, a human doing stretches. Emergency shutdown. The lead Veltraxian technician barked, mandibles clacking with urgency. Authorization code Theta 97. Full system override. The Thernian technician's armored fingers flew across a secondary control panel, executing shutdown. Gravity reduction in 3, 2, 1. The roar died. The pressure lifted. The world stopped trying to crush Velikath into a thin paste. The gravity in the chamber dropped rapidly. 4G, 3G, 2G, 1G. Standard. Velikath sucked in air. His respiratory system finally able to function normally. Every part of his body ached. He felt like he had gone 10 rounds with a Craxian combat champion. In the chamber, Rebecca looked around with confusion. "Oh, are we done? Did something break?" The lead technician activated the chamber's communication system. "Trainee Torres, please exit the chamber immediately. We have experienced a critical system malfunction." Medical personnel are on their way. Is everyone okay? Rebecca asked, genuine concern in her voice. She jogged toward the chamber exit, moving easily now that the gravity had returned to normal. The door cycled open and she stepped through into the corridor beyond. 30 seconds later she appeared in the observation booth doorway. Her training uniform was soaked with sweat. Her face was flushed. Her hair had come partially loose from its ponytail, but she was walking, talking, and looking around with alert, worried eye. "Instructor Vrelikath," she said, moving toward him. "Are you all right? You look terrible. Here, let me help you." She reached out to support him, and Vrelikath flinched back instinctively. Not from fear. Exactly. More from the sheer cognitive dissonance of being offered assistance by someone he had just tried to crush under nearly 5 times standard gravity. I am fine," he managed to rasp. You should be checked by medical." "Me? I feel great," Rebecca said. "I mean, that was intense, but nothing I have not done before. Back home, we had a gym that could simulate higher gravity for strength training. Coach Peterson used to run us through drills at 5G sometimes. Absolute killer workouts. 5G. They trained at 5G. Voluntarily. For fun." The observation booth door opened again and 2 more humans entered, both wearing academy training uniforms. One was a tall male with dark skin and a shaved head. The other was a shorter female with red hair tied in intricate braids. "Hey Becca," the male said casually. "Heard there was some kind of emergency shutdown. Everything cool?" "Yeah, I think so, Chris," Rebecca replied. "Some kind of gravity malfunction or something. The instructor does not look so good though." The red-haired female, whose name tag read Trainee Kimadiemi, glanced at the control panel and it still displayed readings. Her eyes widened slightly. 4.8 G. "Damn, girl. No wonder you are sweating. That is a serious session, right?" Rebecca laughed. "It was actually pretty great. Been a while since I really felt the burn." A medical team arrived, hovering stretchers floating behind them. They went immediately to Instructor Krafnax, who was still unconscious on the floor. 2 medics approached Vrelikath, scanning him with diagnostic equipment. "Instructor, your cardiovascular system is in distress," one medic reported. "We need to get you to medical bay immediately." "I am fine," Vrelikath protested weakly. "With respect, sir, you are not," the medic said firmly. 3 hours later, Vrelikath lay in a medical bay bed, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. The doctors had pumped him full of regenerative compounds and cellular repair stimulants, but even Zentari medicine could not fix humiliation. Commander Thexler stood at the foot of his bed, all 4 arms crossed in a gesture of extreme disappointment. The commander was a Tieralian, a species known for their tactical brilliance and complete intolerance for stupidity. "Explain to me, Instructor Vrelikath, why you thought subjecting a trainee to nearly 5 times standard gravity without proper safety protocols or informed consent was an appropriate training methodology," the commander said, each word sharp enough to cut Durasteel. I believed that." Vrelikath's voice failed him. What could he possibly say? That he had wanted to humiliate her, that he had assumed she was weak, that his pride had overridden every shred of common sense and professional responsibility he possessed. "You did not read her file," Commander Thexler said flatly. "Not completely, not carefully. You saw a human and you made assumptions based on prejudice rather than data." The commander pulled up a holographic display, Rebecca's complete file floating in the air between them. Earth gravity, 1.0 G at sea level. But human evolutionary history spans dramatic elevation changes, atmospheric variations, and environmental extremes that would kill most spacefaring species. They evolved as endurance persistence hunters on a world where everything, and I mean everything, was actively trying to kill them. Their cardiovascular systems are overbuilt for their size, their bone density is exceptional, their muscular efficiency is remarkable, and their pain tolerance. The commander gestured at the data. Humans have a neurochemical response to physical stress that literally makes them enjoy suffering under certain conditions. They call it a runner's high. They seek out physical punishment for recreation. Instructor Vrelikath closed his eyes. "Of course they did. Trainee Torres has filed no complaint," Commander Thexler continued. "She told the investigation team that she assumed it was an advanced conditioning protocol and that she appreciated the challenge. She asked when she could do it again." A strangled sound escaped Vrelikath's throat. "You are suspended from active instruction for 2 cycles," the commander said. "You will undergo mandatory species sensitivity training. You will personally apologize to Trainee Torres, and you will assist in developing proper high-gravity conditioning protocols for human trainees, because apparently we need them." The commander turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Instructor, trainee Torres volunteered to visit you during recovery. She brought you something humans call a fruit basket. She said she hopes you feel better soon. After the commander left, Verlakath stared at the ceiling of the medical bay, contemplating the ruins of his professional pride. He had spent 20 cycles training warriors. He had believed he understood strength, understood weakness, understood what separated the capable from the useless. And then a human had taught him the most important lesson of his career, while casually doing push-ups at 4.8 G. Humans were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply evolved on a world so hostile, so brutal, so unrelenting, that what they considered normal would break most species. They were not soft. They were not fragile. They were not unprepared for the harshness of military life. They were, in fact, terrifyingly, incomprehensibly, absurdly overbuilt for it. And the most disturbing part, they did not even realize it. To them, this was just normal. This was just how things were. The galaxy's newest members, wandering around with death world conditioning, thinking they were average. Verlakath's plates shifted in what might have been the beginning of laughter, or possibly hysteria. Somewhere in the academy, Rebecca Torres was probably already back in training, asking when the real challenges would begin. And Verlakath, humbled and broken and wiser than he had been that morning, finally understood. The humans were not here to play soldier. They were already soldiers. They had been soldiers since before they left their nightmare planet. The rest of the galaxy just had not figured it out yet.